The night was perfect for killing. Jeff, Laughing Jack, and I were heading for a large white house. Finally, we were there. I, of course, took a bobby pin out of my hair and unlocked the door. I was the first one into the room, and I heard a small little snore coming from the corner of the living room. And there was a dog in his doggy bed. I walked over quietly and slit the dog's throat quick, making sure not to wake up the rest of the family. Finally, Laughing Jack, Jeff, and I walked upstairs to the rooms. I went to the pink door where the girl was sleeping. Laughing Jack went to the boys' room with a blue door, and Jeff waited outside for us, knowing that if we needed help, all we needed to do was call. The first thing I did was walk in, sound, and smiled wide, like Jeff, but not with a cut. I put my hand over the girl's mouth, and all she did was open her eyes in shock. I slit her throat quickly, took out my other knife, and made a large X on her chest, and opened her insides, seeing what made her tick. And I gutted her, the one thing that made me so happy whenever I killed. After that was done, I walked into the boys' room, where Laughing Jack was admiring his gutted work. He had placed the boy on a cross on the wall, nailed his hands and feet to the wall, and had gutted him already, his eyes not bare, and, of course, his intestines hanging down. Laughing Jack just loved the sight of what he had done, and I did as well. After we finished admiring, I told Laughing Jack to come outside of the room and wait outside the parents' room, just in case if we needed help. And of course, he said yes. Jeff and I walked inside. I went over to the mother's side, and Jeff went over to the father. I lifted my knife up, not hesitantly, of course, because the woman's face looked just like my mother's. And as I stared at her a little bit longer, I unknowingly, a bit of her daughter's blood spilled on her cheek. She awoke at my smile and the knife drawn to her neck and screamed. The first thing I did was slit her throat. I didn't care if she gargled on her own blood. All we knew was the husband was going to be awake. And I was right. But Jeff quickly grabbed the man. But of course the man was much stronger than Jeff and kicked him into the dresser. As Jeff got up, a shot was fired, and the shot went right into my chest. Laughing Jack quickly ran into the room, knowing that something bad had happened. Right as I was about to shoot, the man shot again, but this time aimed for my shoulder that was carrying the knife and hit his target. I dropped the knife, but luckily I had my other knife in my pocket and slit his throat before he could do any more damage to me. All I knew was I was losing blood fast, and it wasn't going to end well for me. Finally, Jeff got up and continued to gut the man, and finished. I walked down the stairs to get outside to get some fresh air because I was losing blood and I was feeling lightheaded. Jack and Jeff thought nothing of it, of course. Knowing that I had blood all over myself, they thought that it was just the parents' blood and the child's blood. But I slowed down in the forest, heading to Creepypasta Mansion, until I was dead quiet. I had collapsed onto the ground, with no from the blood loss. All I heard was footsteps coming over to me. Jeff had picked me up, and Laughing Jack had placed his hand over my wounds, making sure the blood would try to stop. As Jeff ran to the Creepypasta Mansion, I could feel myself slipping away, closer and closer to the eternal darkness that I would soon be dead. Finally, the door shot open, and he called for Eyeless Jack, but he was nowhere to be found. He yelled for Eyeless, but of course, never came. Finally, he said, Jack, go get the medical supplies. I'm going to try to patch her up. Go now. Laughing Jack nodded and quickly scurried up the stairs to the bathroom to get the medical supplies. Jeff lied me on the couch. As my eyes slowly drooped down, I could feel death's embrace coming. But Jeff didn't care. He hit me to make sure I was still awake. He kept hitting me, not on the wounds, of course, but on my leg, trying to keep me up. And it worked, too, which was weird. But I stayed up. Finally, Laughing Jack came back down with the first aid kit. And the first thing they did was take my sweatshirt off and my other shirt. All I had on was my bra. Of course, they would be that stupid to take it off. They weren't perverts like Ben. Finally, they put a little bit of peroxide on the cuts. And of course, it hurt like hell having it on me. But it was the right thing to do. It cleaned the cut quickly. And Jeff knew what had to be done. The bullets were still in me, and the hole was quite big. The last thing I wanted him to do was put his hand in there, but he did, but he had to. He shoved his hand into my chest and felt around for the bullet, trying not to cause any more damage. Finally, he grabbed the first bullet from my chest and put his hand again in my shoulder to get the other bullet. And finally cleaned out the rest of the wound and sewed it up as fast as he could and wrapped my arm. But of course, after that, I fell asleep, into a deep sleep. A week later, I woke up in my bed, but I saw Jeff on my side of the bed, hands wrapped around my arm, tightly, of course, and hearing him sob, saying, "Don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep." Over and over again I heard him. Finally I said, "Jeff, don't worry. I won't go to sleep, not unless you do it." He quickly shot his head up and saw that I was up and awake. He wrapped his arms around me, not tightly, but tight, and I felt a little pain, but personally I didn't care. I hardly got hugs from him, and I didn't care at all. I wanted it. Finally, Jeff released and said, "You're okay?" And I told him I could be better. It's good you saved me when you did. Jeff looked at me with a puzzling look and asked, "Why?" I said, "Slenderman, when he found me, I never became mortal." Jeff's eyes, from shock, got to anger and rage at what Slenderman forgot to do. He stormed out of the room and yelled for Slenderman, who was of course in his office. Slenderman opened the door and yelled, "What do you want, Jeff? I'm kind of in the middle of something." But of course Jeff didn't care. He yelled right back at him, "Why didn't you make her immortal? Why didn't you make Kira immortal, you dumbass?" He yelled. "Well, I'm sorry, I've had a lot on my plate." "It doesn't matter. You should have made her immortal once she became a creepypasta, you dipshit." They went at it over and over again. Finally, I got up and went between both of them and yelled, "Hey, both of you, shut the hell up. I'm okay now. Just shut up." Slenderman looked at me in awe that I, as quiet girl as I was yelling in rage. I yelled at Slenderman, "Slenderman, get your white ass, or whatever freaking ass you got, back in your room. And Jeff, calm the fuck down." I yelled at him, but Slenderman did as I told. But Jeff stood there, head facing the floor. I looked into Jeff's eyes and saw tears. He grabbed me once more and said, "I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you. You're the only one that I actually care about." That's a girl, of course, other than Laughing Jack. He made that small remark knowing that Laughing Jack was behind him. Finally, Jeff knew exactly what he had to do. But he couldn't do it. He wasn't he wasn't Slenderman. Slenderman was the one who made him immortal, and made the others immortal. If he was going to make me immortal, he had to convince Slenderman to make me immortal.